Hello everyone, I'm Morgan, and today I wanted to talk to you about the books that I read in the month of March. So this video is a bit overdue, but I've had a lot of my plate in uni, so I haven't had time to film this until now. I'm on study break, so this is great. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get into the books. As usual, I'm going to go from the book I like the least to the one I like the most. I read 8 books in March. 2 were physical books and the rest were audiobooks. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Ghostwall by Sarah Moss. I wanted to read this one because it was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I'm trying to read as much as I can from that long list. Unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this book, so we followed this girl whose family is doing this experiment with a professor of trying to live like in the Iron Age, and very early on you learn that her father is quite abusive. He hurts both her and her mother, and obviously I should have empathized with her, and I'm a person that empathizes with people a lot, but I didn't, and I felt weird about that. And more than that, I felt like a lot of this book was trying to be feminist, but ended up just being against men. Like, I haven't seen any good male character in this book. I mean, some were not bad, but we barely saw them. Like, they were very side characters. And so in the end, I'm not sure what this book was trying to do, but then again, it's probably just me because I haven't heard anyone else on BookTube say they did not like this, so you might like it. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of this one, unfortunately. Then I want to talk about My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. Again, this one was longlisted for the Women's Prize, and I did like it better than Ghostwall, but I didn't love it either. So basically, most of it is in the title. We follow this woman whose sister is a serial killer. She has a habit of killing her boyfriends, and what happens in the book is that for once her sister starts to get interested into someone so the woman works with, which stresses her out, and she also has feelings for that doctor. She's a nurse, and so she resorts to telling her troubles to someone who is in a coma. And that part of the book was quite interesting, and I did like seeing like siblings, their relationship, but overall I thought this book was very underdeveloped. Also, it's pretty short, so that's maybe why. I think it would have it would have been better if it had been longer. But still, it's not a bad book, and I did like the way she wrote. But also, like, her sister also is always talked about as like this very, very pretty woman who has a lot of curves, and I don't love when most of what I hear about a character is like how pretty she is, or like, I want to know more than that, you know, like, help me to understand her, to imagine her. Don't just tell me like she's so pretty every time. It's annoying to me, at least. But again, I think my opinion is quite unpopular because a lot of people really like this book, but I thought it could have been better than this. Like, I didn't think it was bad, but I wasn't a fan. Then I wanted to talk about We That Are Young by Priti Taneja, which I have right here. So this one I have very mixed feelings about. I did enjoy it, but also, so we follow this family in India who own this big company that owns hotels and malls and many things there. Basically, like, everyone knows them. And the thing is, I'm not sure what this book was trying to do, and I'm not saying that every book needs to have a purpose, but I feel like you can usually feel when a book is trying to have a purpose, and this one did. And if I had to say what that was, I would say that all the characters end up being terrible people, and you feel quite awful for that a bit, because often they turn out to be people that you really want to root for, and then suddenly they all do something at some point that you're really not a fan of. And again, I don't need to always root for a character, but in this book I thought she was trying very hard to make them all bad, and I wonder why. It felt like she was trying to say that everyone is a sinner in the end, or a bad person, and I'm not sure I like this idea. But other than that, also about the length of this book, so it's quite a chunky one. It's I don't remember exactly how many pages. Yeah, 553 pages, which is quite long, but more than that, it was also extremely dense, so it took me so long to read. I think it could have been edited down definitely a bit. And other than that, I really enjoyed seeing India in this book, because she talked a lot about places and smells and sounds, which really helped to imagine all of the places that she was talking about. So that I really enjoyed. And this was a multi-perspective story. So originally we followed Jeet, who is a member of the family who was gone for a long time in the United States, and at the beginning of the book he comes back, so we get to discover everything again through his eyes, which was really good for a start, and then you get more and more into the story. I really enjoyed a lot of the characters. I thought they were really interesting. I thought the writing was good, but as I just said, I'm not sure what this was trying to do. And yeah, that's just it. Then I wanted to talk about Elric of Melniboné and Other Stories by Malcolm Moorcock. This is the first book in the Elric series, I think. One of my friends talked to me about this book, and he said that this series, which is bigger than even Elric, because you have these characters. So Elric is one of the characters who basically are reincarnations of each other in different worlds, kind of. So this one is the first one. They made in 2013 some editions by Gollancz, who are trying to put back all of the books in the series in a cohesive format. And so this one was an introduction to the series, Elric, but also of a lot of the books made by Michael Moorcock in all of these worlds. So you had a bit of like essays telling you all about fantasy and this world, because Michael Moorcock's works were part of the first like real fantasy books, and he was also one of the first persons who he didn't coin the term, it came before that, but he did really define what fantasy books were, or tried anyway. So I liked trying to go back to classic fantasy. I really like fantasy, so reading all the books like that was really good. And so as I was saying, so you have the first part of the book, which is a lot of essays, and then you have a part of the book that was an adaptation of a graphic novel that they wrote. So instead of actually showing you the graphic novel, they try to describe you what is on the pages, which was a bit weird, I have to say. But still, it makes for a very good introduction to the world, because he dreams of things that happened in the country of Melniboné, in the city of Melniboné, many years ago, many centuries ago. And then the last part of the book is actually what is considered as the first novel in the Elric series, and that I really did enjoy. It's not perfect, it's not trying to be, it's not very well written, but it reads very well, and I do like Elric, though he is a bit dramatic, and the world is very fascinating and complex, and I'm looking forward to read the second book in April, that I'm going to start very soon. Then I read An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, again because it was longlisted for the Women's Prize, and I really did enjoy that one. So we follow black men and women, and at the beginning of the book, the man is accused of having raped a woman while he clearly hadn't done it because he was with his wife, but he gets convicted and sent to prison. And that's the story in this book is of him trying to work through being in prison, though he is he's innocent, and trying to keep his marriage alive. And I wasn't sure at first that I wanted to read about that, because that's just really sad and horrible, and obviously those things must really happen in life, but that's also what makes this book so important. And I did like what it was trying to do in the end. I thought it was quite hopeful in the end, and trying to be very understanding, and I like seeing relationships that are very healthy, and people who are actually trying to communicate. So that book was really good. It's just not a book that I think I will ever reread, because I don't know, all the books about I don't know, black man slavery or whatever, I don't like injustice, that's the thing. It gets me riled up so much. So I do really like those books, and I think they should exist, but I don't want to read too much of it because of my nerves, I guess. Next I read An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I really enjoyed. The story is about a girl who goes in the street in the middle of the night and sees this big sculpture, what she thinks is a sculpture anyway, of a robot, and makes a video about it that goes viral, and we see what happens after that. Although there is a sci-fi element to it, because the sculpture, we learn very early on that the sculpture is made of a material that doesn't exist on Earth, so it's probably alien. Most of the book feels very contemporary and talks about fame and social media, which I really enjoyed, and definitely Hank Green knows what he's talking about, obviously, with his YouTube channel. I mean, he's been doing YouTube for so many years. For as long as YouTube has been created, I think. So his commentary on that was very interesting to see. And I really liked April as a character. She was the main character. Also, she is a lesbian, which is always nice to see. And she struggled with her relationship, with her life, with everything basically. And I also really liked her best friend. Yeah, it was just a very good book. I enjoyed it very much, and the audiobook is great. Yeah, that's all. I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the sequel. Next, I wanted to talk about Bad Blood by John Carreyrou. This is a non-fiction book about a startup that makes blood analysis, but they lied about a lot of things that they promised, and they ended up being caught, obviously eventually. But this book tells about how they were able to fool everyone for so many years. John, so the author, interviewed a lot of the people who worked there, and he just tells the story so very well in this book by trying to make this story about, people and facts. He actually makes the story alive, which I think is an amazing thing to do in a non-fiction book and is often really hard, but he's just an amazing writer. And I was just so interested in everything that was happening. Like, it's non-fiction, but it was so like suspenseful in some ways, and just so interesting. I was fascinated by this book and everything. It sounds so crazy how they were just able to get away with everything that they did for so many years. And they literally hurt people because they were making machines that were trying to test the blob, but the machine didn't work, so it gave false results, and imagine getting a false result of having a disease, like, and how crazy that is. Like, you think you've got, I don't know, cancer, or even an iron deficiency or anything, and so you start taking medication, and that just that can do worse things even if you're actually healthy, and other stuff. Like, it was crazy, really, this book, and it's just everything that a non-fiction book should be, in my opinion. It was great. Then I want to talk about Daisy Jones and the Six. That's the last one. So I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to add to the hype and for you to have very unrealistic expectations for it. But really, I love this book so much. It was amazing. So I listened to this one on audiobook, and so this book is about Daisy Jones, who is such a fascinating woman, and how she grew up at first and then wanted to be a singer, and how she met the group The Six, and how they got together to make Daisy Jones and the Six. And all throughout, so this book is told in interviews of all of the band members, but also of other people, of Daisy's friends, and you have some bits of music also at the end in the audiobook, which is great. and I loved it so much because, for one, I really love books that are very character driven, so this book had that, but also I love books that talk about music, and this obviously did. It talked about how music is made, how it feels, and that just really resonated with me. But also, so the format, and as I was saying, either works for you or it doesn't. So I think that's why some people didn't like it, and I get that. But for me, it totally worked, especially in an audiobook, because I also forgot to mention that the audiobook was a full cast, which was absolutely amazing. Obviously, like you just heard all of the interviews, so you really felt like this was real. Like you were watching, you know, a documentary on TV about a band that existed. And Taylor Jenkins Reid, so the author, I forgot to say who the author was, I'm sorry. So the author said that she was greatly inspired by the band The Civil Wars. No one really knows if there was a relationship between the two singers in the Civil Wars, but everyone always thought it, and the lyrics in the songs also felt like it. But also, so Daisy Jones and the Six also talked about addiction, about friendship, marriage, love, I mean, so many things, really. And I just really need actually to go buy this book and have a copy to be able to reread it and see all the passages that I love, because this book was just so amazing to me. But as I said, I'm not going to talk about it much more because I don't want you to have unrealistic expectations, but really, I thought this was great. Alright, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Please tell me anything that you read in March, as I would love to know, or if you've read any of these books, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Goodbye!